Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Ecovis ProventusLaw, Ecovis Germany, and the German-Baltic Chamber of Commerce in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, AHK, are proud to welcome you all to our webinar on the important topic of ESG and the new EU legislation, CSRD reporting. Beyond compliance, CSRD reporting involves strategy and board-level involvement in sustainability governance. For this webinar, we have gathered ESG experts from Lithuania and Germany to discuss the upcoming CSRD reporting requirements. You will hear insights from consultants and business representatives on leveraging the new business requirements. We hope this webinar will be useful to businesses and consultants who want to stay up to date on the latest developments in ESG reporting. I am Inga Karulaitytė, an attorney at law and a partner of Ecovis ProventusLaw. I'm also a chair of ESG group at Ecovis International and FinTech Hub LT board member in Lithuania. I will be your host today. Today's webinar will have 3 short presentations by myself, Ivan Heine and Roland Junger-Kruger, and a panel discussion with our esteemed guests, experts in ESG, Rytis Ambrazevičius, Jenny Šmigala, and Rasa Didjurgytė, whom I will present later. Please feel free to address your questions in the comment box of the platform you are watching this webinar. So now let's start our webinar, and firstly, I want to share some main top-line information about CSRD reporting. So first, I will start from what does ESG holds. This is environmental social governance. Companies in the scope of CSRD need to stay compliant and report on these 3 topics and their impact to concrete businesses. According to new CSRD, more importance on reporting of governance topic. It is foreseen that 5 times more companies will have to report according to CSRD in comparison with non-financial reporting directive. All large companies and all companies listed on the EU regulated markets except listed micro enterprises would be the subject to these reporting requirements. They will have to report on the full range of environmental, social, and governance issues relative to their businesses. Consistent with the existing rules laid down in the non-financial reporting directive, they would have to report about the risks to the company arising from sustainability issues and about their own impact on people and the environment. This is the dual materiality principle. This will include information on companies' global supply chains regarding issues such as forced and child labor and consistent with internationally recognized principles and frameworks such as International Labour Organization Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work. On this slide, I would like you to show the main regulation documents which led to the CSRD. It started from 2013, when EU Parliament made a resolution based on the analysis of the crisis of 2009, when a lot of companies bankrupted due to the lack of accountability, transparency, and reporting on sustainable growth. According to this document later, the Directive on Non-Financial and Diversity Information Reporting was issued in 2014, NFRD. According to this directive, large companies of public interest, listed companies, banks, insurance companies must report their non-financial information. In 2017 and 2019, EU Commission issued guidelines as a recommendation on how to report this information, and they are non-binding. Later, in 2019, European Green Deal was published as a further strategy on the EU road to the Green EU sustainable economy. According to this document, the taxonomy regulation directly applicable in all the member states was published in 2020. As the prior mentioned guidelines published by the EU Commission are not binding recommendations, for the CSRD. EFRAG, the association which I will describe later, was chosen to draft the sustainability reporting standards, first of such kind in the EU, to unify and harmonize the reporting requirements in all the EU. First draft set relates to horizontal standards only. On December 2022, the CSRD was published and it came into force earlier this year. Member states will have to transpose this directive by 6th of July 2024. And later this year, it is expected EFRAG will issue the sector-specific and small-medium enterprises standards prior finalizing the horizontal standards. So who is EFRAG? It is a private association established in 2001, which was granted the role by the European Commission to provide technical advice in the form of fully prepared draft European Sustainability Reporting Standards, ESRS. So what is new in CSRD? Currently, according to NFRD, Non-Financial Reporting Directive, large companies of public interest are reporting mandatory. With CSRD, all large companies will have to report, and there is a change of definition of a large company. What other things are new? So it is wider scope CSRD foresees for reporting obligations. Non-financial reporting directive foresees that companies should report on environmental protection, social responsibility and treatment of employees, human rights, anti-corruption and bribery, diversity on company boards. And CSRD additionally obliges all the large companies to report on double materiality, how the sustainability issues affects the company and how company impacts the society. It obliges to report the future plans of the company, including target and progress information of intangible assets without, of course, disclosing the commercial secrets and sensible information. The new aspect is that all companies will have to report according to EFRAG standards, new of such kind, and they will have to report according to the requirements of the taxonomy regulation. As well, there are some other new things in the CSRD. So CSRD report is a part of management report. CSRD reports will be auditable, they will be digital and will be made according to concrete mandatory standards. And very important question is when would the CSRD apply? So for large public interest companies, the reporting will be applicable for the financial year starting from 2024. For other large companies, for the year starting from January 1st, 2025, for listed small medium companies except micro undertakings, for financial year starting from January 1st, 2026, and for large non-EU parents for the financial year starting from January 1st, 2028. So this is it for my presentation, and now I would like to invite Ivan Heine, Head of Sustainability and ESG at IAP, Independent Consulting Audit Professionals, and Ecovis Germany company with over 20 years of compliance, risk, and audit experience. He is a leading sustainability and audit expert with knowledge of banking and finance. He is a certified public accountant and even is also the co-chair of the ESG group at Ecovis International. Ivan will present new EU and German legislation adoption in practice. Ivan, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Inga. Great presentation. A lot of details we saw already on the law itself. It's quite huge, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation, also to AHK. Yeah, giving a slide presentation today. Inga introduced me already. Thank you for that. Yeah, what I'm going to talk about today a little bit is the German impact on this legislation. in specifics, the adoption and how it's done in practice, and what is required. We heard the top part we heard from Inga already regarding the EU legislation. And in Germany, it looks as follows. So far, we have the CSRD. It's actually the implementation law in law already. And we're waiting now for the CSRD 2, we call it in Germany. The German term is Richtlinienumsetzungsgesetz for the German speakers. And that's why there's no check mark here. So far, it's not been adopted, and Inga told us about the timelines. There's some time now for the individual countries to adopt the European law, and then this will also become law in Germany. In addition, some of you may have heard the Lieferketten-Sorgfaltspflichtengesetz, the Supply Chain Act. This became law in June 21. This is a little of interest because Germany is here the forefront runner, and because there's no, well, there's a EU equivalent law, but it's not in place yet. So Germany was here quicker and acted already, and this is actually effective as of January 1st this year already. So large companies, just giving you one note here, bigger than 3,000 companies, employees have to apply to this law already. And it's foreseen to lower this threshold to 1,000 employees by the year of 24. And the main aspect of the supply chain law is basically the human rights fight against human rights exploitation, slavery, children's labor, etc. Companies should have different obligations in place, such as risk management and the compliance management procedures. So these are just a few explanatory notes here. On this slide, yeah, this is pretty interesting. Inga mentioned this already, but I don't think she mentioned the numbers. So it's actually foreseen, and some analytic specialists, foresee the growth potential, and this is really amazing. Right now, it's about 550 people who do the NFRD reporting, and it's foreseen that this number will actually grow to 15,000, and this is the impact in Germany. And in Europe, it's actually 4 times this amount, so around 60,000. So this is just a forecast. It may not be like that, but just so you see some numbers and can put this into perspective. The standards Inga talked already about a little bit. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the details of what is really required. So we heard already that the EFRAG is publishing these standards, and this how this came about is also very interesting, because some of you may know other standards. There's, for example, the GRI, the Global Standards, Global Reporting Initiative Standards. It's a world standard. Then there's also from the ISSB, the International more regulated company from the US and North Americas coming in there. So it's really that they're not new. Well, they are new standards, but they're using existing standards. So don't be afraid if you're already reporting in accordance with GRI or ISSB. This will just be a slight adoption then for you. What's new as well is that they have now general cross-cutting standards. And those ones really look at the strategy, because the strategy should be something that should really come at the forefront. Inga mentioned this already regarding the management reporting. So your management, your CEO, your management board should really be behind this initiative in the reporting, and should really drive this. So this is the purpose here. There's also a separate governance standard. We didn't have this in place before with the CSR. There were just a few things mentioned here regarding the human rights, for example, but this is also new. The governance, and especially that you look at the governance in your own company, that bodies are established, which is pretty important. Of course, the social part, Inga mentioned this already. This is also nothing new. It's just a little bit more details here. You've heard all about the diversity and inclusion principles. This is just some highlights here. And as you can imagine, the environmental piece is still the biggest here with climate change, pollution, water and marine resources. This is just a short excerpt here. But your takeaway, it's not all of them are going to be explicitly mandatory. So they go with, or the idea is to tell companies that all this is mandatory, and you just may have to write a short explanation why something may not be applicable to you. And this is still in the works. I had the pleasure last summer to contribute to some review sessions. They made this pretty open. Like Inga mentioned, they serve really in the public interest. So there was, for example, a workshop in Berlin where I participated in the governance section. And you could give some feedback. And they incorporated all this, and then they issued now the draft standards. And hopefully by this June, they are also, so they're finalized by this June, and they're also hoping to publish branch specific standards. So for example, for the banking industry, for the transportation industry, etc. So this is their plan. All pretty interesting, I think. So a lot to come. Oh, and one thing also important with the CSRD, there's a requirement for external audit. At the moment, they plan to do a limited assurance, but so you know this, that this is a new requirement with this law. I think I covered, yes. And then also to my last slide, basically, just wanted to give you some perspective here, and luckily we hear this from the panelists later today. There is currently a trend, a voluntary versus mandatory reporting. So of course, mandatory reporting, you fall within the scope and you have to report. But there's currently a slight increase of actually companies that do voluntary reporting. Of course, there's different reasons for that. One is peer pressure. So, your competitor may do reporting already, so you also want to pick up the reporting. There's some governmental pressure for companies. And then the Supply Chain Act now also comes into place, because you may be a supplier to a company, and you also have to report to them if they ask you certain things. So there's really different reasons to start voluntary reporting. And one really good reason is that you do not have the time pressure. So you may become mandatory in a few years. So it's a great idea to start early, to get your process in place. Inga mentioned already the different departments. And Roland, in the next session, will talk in specifics which departments are really taking place here. And I can already tell you, it's the entire company that's really going through a transformation. We also call this sometimes a transformation project, because it's not only a small project, it's here to stay. And a lot of people are involved. You can already imagine, if you need those disclosures from environmental aspects, social and governance, you really need to reach out to different colleagues throughout your company to get all those metrics in place. Metrics are important, KPIs, transparency is a big word. Those standards will give a lot of transparency, because all the companies that do that reporting will have to oblige to those standards. So I think I'm right on spot, and I will will hand over to my previous colleague. Actually, we worked at a company together, to Roland. Inga will take over again. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much, Ivan, for your wonderful presentation with details and concrete examples, as you already are working on this reportings in Germany. So now I would like to invite Roland, CEO at Value 4P. He's a certified process and project expert, experienced in international projects, focusing on legal, compliance, and ESG. So Roland will present the importance of process management and the value chain. So, Roland, the stage is yours. Looking forward to hear your presentation.
Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. Sorry for that. So thanks again, Inga. Thank you for the invitation, for the for the presentation. And yes, what I will talk about today is how to prepare and write a CSRD report. So what kind of project phases and milestones will you have to go through? And what are the roles, experts, and stakeholders? What, as mentioned already by Ivan, you will have to consider within such a project. So yeah, let's start with an overview of who's important to consider and involve if you start to prepare and write a CSRD report. So it means that you, for the input, you need a lot of different kind of experts. You need all instances within a company. So as Even already mentioned, it's important to include all kind of employees. As a representative for different departments. And of course, you shouldn't just create the report and publish it if you haven't heard the customer's voice, the stakeholder's voice, so like shareholders, investors, and so on. So you should be aware of what kind of information is important for the stakeholders, for the interests of the report. So what kind of roles and experts and stakeholders are we talking about specifically? So first of all, you need the senior management. So a CSRD report needs to be driven by company goals. You need an overall guidance. So you need to talk about with your senior management about the objectives, key themes, and what kind of message do you want to publish, and what kind of picture do you want to be published of your company. You need sustainability professionals, which means that so people like for example Ivan and all the participants in the panel later on, which know what it means to make a change which lasts for a very long time, so that you achieve your goals even if they are not in a short term available. So next, you need data analytics experts. This is a very important topic, because you need to know what kind of data do I have to evaluate and analyze, and what kind of, for example, KPIs will get out of the data you will capture. So I just read there's a question in between. Is it right? Otherwise, I will continue, and we can dig into questions afterwards. So next kind of okay, perfect. Next kind of experts are the external auditors. Of course, these are very important stakeholders, because they are interested in these reports. So you have to discuss with them what kind of information do they need, how should the information be provided and structured. So very important to meet the goals you want to achieve with the report. You have several kind of stakeholders, so more or less the interested parties for a report, like customers, employees, your suppliers, investors, so that you, as I mentioned in the first slide, that you understand from the very start what are the people, the readers of your report, what are they interested in. You have the communication professionals, very important. So you should have a kind of marketing for your report so that it will be brought to the right stakeholders, that it will improve the acceptance of your goals and so on, so that you will make sure that it will be, that the stakeholders will be addressed in the right way. Okay, we have more stakeholders. We have the lawyers, legal experts, of course. You have to deal with a lot of laws. You have to be aware of the latest changes in laws, in regulations. So therefore, you need the expertise of lawyers. For the social part, you need HR professionals to get the information about what kind of aspects and KPIs do you have to consider in respect in respect to diversity, inclusion, and so on. And last but not least, you have the environmental professionals, of course, to understand what kind of environmental goals you have to consider and requirements you have to be aware of. Next thing, back from the stakeholders and going on, what kind of phases and milestones do you have to walk through if you prepare and write the CSRD report? So more or less, it's we have 5 phases. Of course, it depends on where you are, where you start with your report. So you might focus more on analysis than on the report writing process, if it's already your second or third report and you're already routine with it. Of course, if you start with such a project, you should especially you should give attendance to all of these phases. So we talk about the planning and preparation, the analysis of the data, the writing of the report. It has to be reviewed and approved before it can be published and communicated. So what does it mean in specifically for the phases? We have the phase 1, where you have to define the objectives of the report. Of course, you need to define a project team, as already mentioned before, also by Even. Writing a CSRD report is a big project. Don't underestimate it, because it will bring not only a paper, but also a lot of changes for your whole organization. So therefore, you should be aware of that you have representatives of all departments, of all areas of your company, to make sure that everything will be considered. What kind of goals will you have after you walk through phase 1 kind of milestones? So a project team has been established, and you have individuals representing all teams and so on, and they are aware of the goals and they accept the responsibility they have in that project. Okay. Next, phase 2 analysis. The collected data is so you collect the data you want to use, you evaluate how it will be assessed and valued. So it means you have to collect the data at first, and then it has to be analyzed, and the key themes have been identified. So this is a very structuring task you have to do here. So making sure that you not only collect data, but cluster it in different to different topics and themes, so that you have a clear understanding and a clear message and measurability of the data you have for your report. Report writing, of course, is clear that you have to structure it, and the content has to be developed. So you take the data, you take your the insights and the knowledge you got out of the data, structure it, and organize the topics and so on. Next phase, review and approval. Of course, it has to be reviewed by specific stakeholders, for example. Of course, it has to be reviewed by experts. It has to be reviewed by those who have taken their part in developing the report. And at the end of it, of course, it has to be approved by, for example, external auditors, of course, by the senior management and so on. And the last phase is publication and communication, as mentioned before. So, of course, it has been published, the report, and promoted. So, as I mentioned before, it's a kind of marketing task you have to do here as well to make sure that the report fulfills the goals you want to achieve with it. Okay, I'm at the end of my presentation. As a giveaway, I have something for you. Even Heine and I, last year we created the ESG Compact, which is a free and responsive ESG information app, which will be updated and added with content regularly. So feel free to use this app and download it on your mobile, or use it or look at it with your browser. You will find a lot of articles, news, terms, definitions, and a lot of a huge glossary with external links and so on. So yeah, that's it from my side. Thanks for your attention, and I look forward to the panel discussion.
Thank you, Roland, very much for very comprehensive process flow explanations on how the report should be performed. So, and after our presentations and monologues, let's move to the most interesting part of our webinar, and let's discuss the people who represent different businesses and can already share their experience with ESG, sustainability, and reporting of non-financial information. So today in our panel discussion, we have Ms. Rasa Didjurgytė, Lidl Lietuva Corporate Social Responsibility Manager, who works at company for almost 7 years and specializes in sustainability reporting, GRI, sustainability strategy development and communication. Thank you, Rasa, very much for joining our panel. As well, we have Ms. Jenny Šmigala. She is the head of compliance and CSR at Scandlines with over 15 years of compliance, internal audit, risk management, and ESG experience. She holds an MBA in governance, risk, compliance, and fraud management, and is a certified internal auditor, fraud examiner, and data protection officer. Thank you very much, Jenny, for joining our discussion. Another panelist is Mr. Rytis Ambrazevičius, who is the president of the Baltic Institute of Corporate Governance, a nonprofit and non-governmental initiative promoting leading corporate governance practices in Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. He is a board member of the European Confederation of Directors Association and an active member of various working groups related to corporate governance topics. Rytis also is a professional certified board member with extensive board experience. And as well, I would like to invite Ivan, Heine, and Roland to the panel discussion as well. Welcome, everyone. So firstly, I would like to address some questions to Rasa and Jenny as representatives of businesses which already have voluntarily reported on ESG matters. So you have already prepared and released several reports for your companies. How difficult was it, and what were the biggest challenges? How big was your team? What departments were involved? Did you have support from your management, from the superior people in the company? So tell us a little bit about the process. Was it something similar what Roland discussed? So maybe Rasa, please start.
Yes, thank you for the question, Inga. So we have published our already second sustainability report just a couple of weeks ago. We follow GRI standards, and this is definitely a very long and extensive process, complicated process. For this reason, we actually chose to do reporting every 2 years so that we do good reports, but not not every year, but every 2 years, and try to make the report as good as possible. And for sure, we have a sustainability team in our company. It involves different people from different departments, like, for example, real estate, human resources, quality assurance, purchasing, and other departments. And these colleagues, they also, at least to some extent, participate in the reporting process. First of all, since the first step of the process is to do the materiality assessment, materiality analysis, so together with the whole team, we do our internal impact assessment of what we think our biggest impacts are. So we do this internal impact assessment together with the whole team. And then we also did stakeholder survey to find out what topics are most important from the stakeholder point of view. And so as we did both of these assessments, we had our materiality matrix, which was also approved by the board. So we presented this materiality matrix to the board, and we selected the most material topics for the report. In addition, we also chose 4 additional strategically important topics, which were not material, at least at this point, but we thought that they are still very important for us strategically and we should report on them. So not only the sustainability team was involved in this process but also the board as well. And once you have the topics, then you have to, of course, see what disclosures you have to do. You need to collect KPIs and all kinds of material and do the report. Also, when doing the report, everything is aligned with the respective departments. They have to look through those chapters if everything is written well. And then, of course, there are other steps involved, like limited external assurance. That, for example, we did a limited external assurance, and that's also something that takes quite a lot of time, and you have to plan ahead. It could take a few months to do this external assurance. Then, since we follow the GRI standards, we also had to align our GRI content index with the GRI services. So that takes also some time. And another important thing that I would like to mention is that we also wanted our report to look attractive, to make it user-friendly for the standard reader, let's say. And even though these reports are not meant normally for the standard reader, but we still wanted them to look more attractive, because one of our main stakeholders is our customer. So we still want them to have at least a peek in the report and see at least some of the most important milestones that we have achieved.
Yeah,
so definitely a long process and needs quite a lot of planning. That would be my advice, to plan ahead and set timelines for different steps.
Yeah, it is quite impressive. And so many teams were involved. It's really, that means, that your company is quite already progressed in the process of reporting. And what about, Jenny, your experience? How many times you have reported? What kind of, I don't know, you had some problems, you did not have problems? How the process was built?
I think you cannot not have problems, but thank you, Inga. So sustainability for us has been a topic that is not at all new. So we have for a very long time already been thriving to reduce emissions. But then a couple of years back, we said that we really want to develop a comprehensive sustainability strategy that encompasses all the elements of the E, the environment, social, and governance, so for the ESG. And as part of that, then we also developed the sustainability report, and we're just about to actually publish the third sustainability report. We do an annual reporting just in line together with the annual report, actually. So actually, I thought the first sustainability report is going to be the hardest one, but then seeing all the increasing requirements in terms of GRI, but also especially the CSRD, as was already discussed today, actually is becoming harder every year. But using a standard framework like the GRI has very much helped us to also develop our ESG strategy. So they have very good hints on how to do your materiality assessment, something that we of course have started up with as well, that helped us to identify our 6 focus areas for the reporting, and then just decline everything from there. So just in terms of putting together the report, the biggest challenge really is the data. And that really is because ESG data is not always captured in the same way as financial data yet. That's going to have to change, right? Today, data is just in so many different places and formats, and just to get the definitions right is a real challenge. So we're also getting a lot of ESG questionnaires from stakeholders, and I think last year we had 3 different definitions of what is the unadjusted gender pay gap. So I think having something like the CSRD that will also bring some common definitions and understanding of certain data elements will also be really, really helpful. So in terms of who's involved, well, it's definitely not just me, it's really the whole organization. So I really see myself more as someone coordinating the efforts, but I'm not able to manage ESG, let's say, so for everyone, because of course we need the input from all the areas. So HR should be the main driver for all the diversity inclusion efforts and other efforts, obviously, in that area. They have to provide the data. We have the health and safety being very big. Operations, because I'm not gonna be able to transform one of the vessels into a zero emission vessel. It's gonna have to be the real technical experts doing that. So it really encompasses everybody, and also as one of you mentioned in the presentations, the communications department, just making sure that everything is on the right tone, addressing and appropriate for the various stakeholders that we have, is a very important element. And yeah, I think one of the questions was also on the top management and the support we get from them. Actually, for us, the top management and also our investors have been really, really keen on us advancing in this topic. So the investors have been keen, the top management has been supportive. So they're very strongly involved in the development of the policy, the strategy, the policies, discussing the materiality assessment. And even with our investors, we have actually implemented a dedicated safety and sustainability committee at the same level as the audit and risk committee. So that's perhaps also to show that there's a real interest there.
Yeah, it's really very interesting to hear, especially when both of your companies did it voluntarily. So what were the reasons to do voluntarily ESG information disclosure? Because it's not mandatory, you could avoid that. How you could comment?
Well, the reason why we did it is that we felt we are already doing a lot in ESG and we wanted to share it. It was very much also a request from our investors actually to do that. And yeah, so it was really stakeholder request. And also as we are getting questions from customers, we thought it would be a good way to communicate on what we are already doing.
Okay, and Rasa, in your case, why did you do it voluntarily?
Yeah, so sustainability is, of course, a very important topic for us as a business for our future, and it's really strategically important. So we want to communicate about it on a regular basis. We want to raise awareness and inform our stakeholders about what we're doing. So we are doing this communication on a regular basis. However, reporting really brings this to the next level. And with the reporting, we not only talk about the attractive topics, not just some easy topics that other stakeholders want to hear, but also we are covering a lot more and bringing even more difficult topics on the agenda. As well, we are becoming a lot more transparent for the stakeholders. And another thing I would like to point out is that reporting also helps ourselves to keep track on our progress. So when reporting, we have to disclose certain information according to the standards. We have to have those KPIs to collect data on a regular basis, estimate our progress. So these reports also help ourselves to estimate are we on track or not? What is the progress? Should we do more? And just keep our progress and also communicate, like I said, to the stakeholders, communicate the bigger picture and be more transparent.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, it's not that easy as you explained, but to do internally or to seek these targets internally is understandable, but companies do not act alone. They have supply chains, purchase goods and services from other companies all around the world, which does not necessarily, those countries or companies do not necessarily follow the highest standards foreseen in the EU. How companies leverage the value chain to improve their ESG performance and reporting, how you can impact the value chain, like your suppliers and customers, to make a change for your reports, because most probably in your reports, this information as well should be reflected. Jenny?
Well, I mean, obviously the value chain is something that our supply chain is really, really important. We have 1,500 vendors approximately, and obviously we wouldn't want to be seen as having a negative impact because of our supply chain. So just with us asking the questions, right? I mean, including sustainability criteria and the vendor vetting also already sends a signal out to the vendors and helps us to make more informed choices. We will have to increase that work. I mean, just in being able to put together our emissions inventory, we have to get better data. We have to also basically transform our emission reduction targets to them. So we improve, I think, the supply chain and help these organizations also to recognize the importance of these elements just by raising the topic over and over again.
And Rasa, how can sustainability of a value chain impact the organization? What is the impact in the report? I lost you? No? Rasa?
So we definitely put a lot of
now we can hear you, Rasa. Maybe you can continue.
Okay, sorry about that. So like I said, we focus a lot on the upstream supply chain because for us as a retailer, it is very important, and we have definitely in most areas the highest impacts in those areas. So we definitely have to focus on this stage. We have to analyze, first of all, the risks, see where the impact is happening, try to minimize those risks, and then try to bring our suppliers along on the sustainability track, raise goals and try to convince them to be more sustainable with us, to invest in sustainability, to comply with standards. And then by doing so, we of course include all this kind of information about our progress in the reports. And as I mentioned previously, the reporting itself helps us to define those key areas where we have to focus. It helps us with the KPIs. It helps us to track the progress and see where we have to try even more. So that would be my comment.
Thank you. Rytis, you as a board member of respectful organizations, what is your opinion about this question, about the impact of the value chain of the supply chain to the sustainability reports of the companies? How far, the Baltic states are now? Maybe you can comment on this.
Thank you for inviting. The picture in the Baltics, since I'm kind of my everyday work almost is to talk to the boards of the, I would say, bigger companies and more developed companies, not like a small, 10 people companies, but bigger really companies. And unfortunately, I want to say that we are lagging behind. So I'm very congratulate you with this event, because we have to speak and to speak and to speak, because it's really not enough. First, the information Because sometimes when I'm asking the board, what do you do as a board in sustainability or ESG, they are looking to me and it seems that they do not understand the question. And then they're showing to some kind of a communication manager and they say he is producing or she is producing the sustainability report. That's it. And it's even the kind of new type of business. Companies are doing not so much in sustainability or ESG, but hiring a nice company to produce the report. And I'm also, when I'm meeting or preparing for the meeting, we are also analyzing the corporate governance practices, level of the practices, how they are good in that. So one of these areas is also the ESG and sustainability. And I'm reading the reports, annual report, integrated report, sustainability report, and so on. And then I'm talking to the boards. And unfortunately, but quite often, or in majority of the cases, the board is not aware what was written in these reports. But these reports are signed by the board members. So it means they're signing the main accountability document. I'm not talking about the financials, so it's kind of obvious. But what the company did, how it did that, what they're going to do. And when you are reading, it's already not 1 year, it's for many years already, in the Baltics that the reporting is responsibility of someone else. But actually it is the board's responsibility to be accountable to all the stakeholders, not the shareholders, not only investors, but to all stakeholders. And there are plenty of them, dozens of them. I mean, different group of.
Yeah, it's quite frightening, especially when CSRD is foreseeing the information to be reported in the management report. That means that signing off of all the information and very detailed information will be done by the managers. So let's look into the future what the responsibility might become, to the board members. Maybe they need to have high insurance. I'm just joking, of course.
Yeah, but if I may to add, actually,
Yeah.
in the kind of some of the companies, actually, the board is leading the process of reporting, and on the boards where I am or I was serving, we were initiating very clear procedure how the board is kind of initiating and following and kind of finalizing all this process. It doesn't mean that the board is writing the report, but what this report should the content, then what is the information, then the feedback to the management. You need to add this, you need to add this, and so on and so on, and then the kind of final version of the report. So 3 times the board at least has to be engaged in the preparation of the report, whatever is the sustainability integrated report or annual report.
Yeah, so that means that this is responsibility or, the tone from the top, which should be reflected and then cascaded to the other people or departments, because the board finally or other, if there is no board, higher level managers are responsible for the reporting, not communication officer, even if that person is responsible for making the report. So this is very important, maybe to speak about whose responsibility and who needs to take a flag, and who needs to guide this process. So you as a a professional of the boards and of the governance can as well maybe share the best practices how it should be.
So as already I explained that, first maybe I can expand, if I may, the question, because it's not about the reporting. Reporting is the very, very final step when you did your job, right? So let's talk about the job itself, because we are forgetting about the job should be done in sustainability or ESG, and then we're talking about this reporting. Then it comes to the paper and greenwashing. So it once again, it has to start on the top, means on the board level. And the board should set the tone in this very important area of business. And even more, as we see that EU regulations are moving towards the responsibility of the boards regarding sustainability. But it's not about the companies. It's about compliance. It's about initiating the transformation of the whole company organization, the mindset, the business models, the strategies, and so on and so on. And we all understand that EU is not crazy, and they are still developing some new directives are going to come soon, not because of they have nothing to do, because for decades companies were cheating and lying to the investors, to the customers, to the partners, and so on, that they are green and responsible. So the kind of this era is ending. And the faster the companies, including starting from the boards, will understand it, the less kind of problems they will have and the more successful they will be.
Do you see the value for the companies which are not mandatory required to report sustainability information to report it according to CSRD or to NFRD? Do you see the value and if it can impact their businesses in terms of, I don't know, being in the productive supply chain, like being a best partner to choose for the bigger companies?
So actually, ESG and sustainability is very much related to the trust. So if you are responsible, either the company or in real life the person, I will be willing to do whatever I want, cooperate with you much more than with others that I do not trust so much. And all this sustainability and ESG reporting brings kind of this trust to the high level. But it's very important. Is it just the paper? And I like the saying of one famous investor. When I'm reading the sustainability report, the next what I do, I'm going to see to the eyes, I'm look to the eyes of the top management. And if I will see the same, what I just read in the sustainability report, then I trust this report. Usually it's not the case. So it's, once again, it's not only just the paper, the company itself, and the value of all this ESG and sustainability activities, it's enormous, and companies are still not understanding how they can benefit from that. Some companies already doing this, and they're very happy, and they are creating even stronger long-term competitive advantage, actually. I mean, pure business opportunities.
Maybe that means that this is the role of investors to drive ESG reporting and performance for the companies. What about our investors?
Actually, all these regulations that we see and we will see in Europe, they are kind of driven, all this kind of change or initiatives are driven by the investors. But after the investors are coming all other stakeholders, starting from the consumers. And let's for the company think about the talents. Are you happy with your ability to attract the talents? So what are you doing for that? And this sustainability and ESG that also can help you. So all these elements are making the company more successful in the long run. So which company doesn't want, especially the board, of course. And that's it.
Okay, now I have a question to Rasa, Jenny, Iberitis, you, even Roland, what are your thoughts? How can ESG consultants and advisors support companies in preparing for the new CSRD reporting and improving their ESG performance? As you just spoke about the talents, so do we have talents? Maybe if not not in house, maybe we have some consultants. Do we trust them? So what are your thoughts? Rasa, maybe you can start.
Yes, so absolutely, I think companies should use external consultants, especially when they are doing this for the first time, and especially when they are not really prepared for the reporting. So everything really starts with identifying the key areas where we have the most impact, and then collecting data, collecting KPIs, calculating those KPIs every year. So this is where really the companies have to start. And if they are not doing that yet, not really having those key KPIs, then they should, I would suggest definitely to use the help of external consultants. And of course, for every other step of the reporting, that's definitely helpful to have external partners, but definitely companies should think in advance before about regarding this reporting and start collecting data already. That would be my advice.
Jenny, what is your experience? Have you tried?
I think that especially in view of the increasing requirements, we are all in this together and we all need to learn, and it's all new to us. And I think in that we just have to collaborate and learn from each other, and externals can help very much in best practice sharing and just helping this learning curve to speed up.
Rytis, do you have your opinion?
Yeah, my very big advice and very strong advice to the companies: when you are hiring or thinking about to hire the consultants, of course, hire the most professional ones and invest, but not only regarding the reporting. Try to engage consultants to teach at least the top and senior people. The better will be even the whole organization. What is that? Because believe me, people do not know this. And actually, when we are talking in the organization, it's not one person or board, several top managers, and maybe someone responsible for sustainability. The whole organization should know that. And if some of an organization knows, so it will last for quite a long time to kind of engage all the organization into this process, because it's new way of making business. That's it.
Yeah, very good advice. Even from your as a consultant's perspective, do you think you advise and it's necessary?
Sure, just very quickly, we're almost over time. I'm just glad Inga, Roland, and we really talked about this more theoretical approach, and now we heard, from the panelists that pretty much all of this was almost spot on, right? We talked about the management and the board, that's so important that they're behind this report, that different departments need to be involved. I think, and like Jenny really framed it really nicely. Now we are all in this together. It's all so new for us. We're just, starting. I mean, nobody has really had a CSRD reporting, and we all talk about it as if we know about it. So, this year will be the first one for some companies. So definitely, we're all in this together, and we should, do this together.
Sure. Thank you. And we have a question from audience. Not sure, maybe even you can answer. What about the actual impact accounting methodologies that companies?
I tried to answer quickly. Like I said earlier, so the EU law will have to be translated into the local country law. So, for example, in Germany, the HGB, the German law applies. So therefore, you have to apply the German accounting standards. So this will be equivalent in other countries as well.
In all the member states. So yes, we are out of time, and thank you very much for all the listeners we have, and for the panel discussions, for the panelists and for the presenters. Thank you very much for contributing, and hopefully we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.